So I just gotta say one thing and one thing only. Please never, ever listen to my advice when it comes to tipping for Australian football because I apparently have no idea what the hell we're talking about. Donnie, even you apparently don't know what the hell you're talking about. Neither does anyone, it seems like it, across all of footy media because round 7 was everywhere and it was anything but expected. But that seems like it's just par for the course of this entire season so far. I just don't know what the hell is going on, especially because you and me over here in the States, I'm not able to watch most games. Most of them I watch my replay, but like unless it's important ones that I don't want to see the score if I look at the scoreboard. I look at the scoreboard and go, oh, wait, what? Every round is confusing, but do you share the same sentiments?
Oh man, this was literally a round where everything that I thought was going to happen did not happen. And it was spectacularly glorious, even though I got so many things wrong on my tipping. Just the utter chaos, considering if I saw right, three teams in the eight right now all lost this week.
Mhm.
Three,
Five,
almost
four of the
half
5 teams from our power rankings from for last week lost, and some of them
lost.
in bad fashion.
Uh-huh.
So I
Oh,
think we got a little bit to talk about this week. But of course, this is America's voice of Australian football. I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by AFL correspondent coach Donnie Hess. And I think we already set the tone well enough. I think we're ready to get into the whatever kind of round of footy this was. And then start off with a huge game. Now, admittedly, after what happened to Richmond in round 7, or round 6, I wasn't really looking forward to this game as much. But of course, constant theme on this round, I was wrong because Richmond, they take on the undefeated Doggies and they hand them the first loss of the season in a game that is more of a just a defensive masterclass in what we see in Richmond of old, the Richmond that wins premierships. What do they do to you? They suffocate you, they constantly pressure you, and they don't even allow you to get a kick or even a little handball off. And that's what it looked like that Richmond did, especially against what was up to this point the best midfield in the game. And then even though they lost. A good thing for the Doggies, 1 point out, is that Adam Treloar became the second quickest player to reach 5,000 disposals behind Greg Diesel Williams. And I think one of the things that kind of pushed Richmond in this one is not just what they were able to do defensively, but it was Tom Lynch stepping up in Dusty's absence and putting on his best performance of the season. And this is a Tom Lynch that we haven't really seen, I guess, since last year.
oh, this was just a game where Richmond's game style actually helped them. I think the first half it was really a tug of war. Both teams were
Mhm.
playing really, really tough footy. It was hard to get a hold of the game. Both teams, it was really back and forth. And the second half, I really don't know what Dimmer Hardwick said, but whatever he did lit an absolute fire inferno underneath Richmond because Western couldn't do a darn thing right. They couldn't hit handballs. They were running into tackles. They were turning the ball over. And it's hard to say. Lynch has a great game. Shy Bolton comes out of the midfield and has a really good game. I mean, this was the Richmond that I think several people expected in the last couple of rounds,
Mhm.
and they just might have shown their hand. And the scary part is that was without Dusty Martin. They just dismantled this. Many people said was the best team this season.
Mhm.
Just dismantled them without Dusty Martin. That's how scary this Richmond team is because it is a team. I mean, as much as they have superstars like Lynch and Grimes and Dusty Martin, even though he wasn't in the game, they're still such a team oriented group.
Mhm.
They're going to be scary if they can play like this at all because I mean they're the benchmark for the title, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, the Western Bulldogs just failed their first attempt at trying to knock off who many people say is the standard bearer of AFL in the last 4 years.
Yeah, it'd be hard to argue that point of the Tigers. Normally, we see Richmond like it seems like it's always the theme of their season. They get off to a slow start. They always get questioned, oh, are they over? And then they pick things up about halfway through and then just go on to tear the rest of the season and then win the premiership. This might be the game where, here's when they turn it on. I am curious to see what they're able to do next round once we get into our tipping later in the show. Then also what they're going to be able to do once Dusty eventually makes his return to the lineup, if we'll see the same kind of Richmond team but enhanced, or if they might return to earlier form that we saw at the beginning of the season. But my question is about the Western Bulldogs, and it seemed like I asked the question when GWS had a very competitive game with them last round. They might have shown some holes in the game for the Doggies. Does this game spell disaster for the Bulldogs? Have they been found out?
I don't know if it spells disaster, but it definitely showed there is some frailty in the back. And I had said it earlier. I said if there is a weak point in this Western Bulldogs team, it is in their back line.
Yes.
Their back line doesn't have that marquee shutdown one-on-one defender. Now, when you play Rewalt and Lynch, it's hard because if you take one away, the other might have a field day.
Mm-hmm.
And Caleb Daniels, as great of a player as he is, he gets tons of disposals, is a great guy, is a great player for him. He's one of the shortest guys in the league. He's not going to be able to take somebody one-on-one and take them out of the play.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Doggies team a Western Bulldogs team that, to be completely honest with you, I think it'll all just kind of depend on matchups, because if you get a team that can press them and take away their handballing game, which is what they love to do through the midfield, they're a run and gun team with a ton of handballs. If you can cut that off and bomb it in and have forwards that can mark like the West Coast Eagles, like Richmond, like potentially Sydney if they get Logan McDonald and Lance Franklin, and Tax Walker potentially with Adelaide. If you get that big forward that can find holes, you're going to expose this Western Bulldogs team. And I think that's what Richmond kind of did. I'm not hitting the Western Bulldogs. They're a fraud. They're a
no
fake.
alarm yet.
No. There's still so much talent. And again, also English was not in the game, and he tends to sometimes sit back and intercept mark around the halfback line, which they didn't have. So Toby Nankervis for Richmond had a field day in this game. So I think there's enough things that weren't there for the Western Bulldogs that I think I'm not going to sit here and say this is the typification of this team. No, there's still a ton of footy to go, but this was more of Richmond showing that patterns have evolved. I saw this statistic and I wanted to throw this out there. In their four flags, in the 4 years that they've gotten to the flag, 5 wins, 4 wins, 4 wins, 4 wins after round 7. And what did they have going into round 7? 4 wins.
So, aside supporting up, if you're a Tigers fan, just like, I swear, Donnie, like, I love the Giants. I'm never going to stop being a supporter of them. But why couldn't I have picked the Tigers? Damn it.
That's a bandwagon jumper. It's a bandwagon jump team.
Well, maybe that's a good thing then. I was real close to picking for going with Geelong though for about a week.
Not a bad one for history. I think for Richmond, it's kind of like being in the NFL there for the longest time when Brady was in his peak powers and becoming a Patriots fan. It's like you respect that you like greatness, but it's like it's a little easy. It's a tiny bit easy.
See, a lot of people hate Richmond for their success. Still, no one is hated as the Collingwood Magpies though, and so this was another fun round if you're like 99% of the footy fan base and hate the Magpies, because that takes us right into the next game of the round, Donnie, because we got Collingwood taking on Gold Coast, and Gold Coast hands Collingwood their 5th straight loss on the season. They have not won the game since round 2, and they built off a good game. Remember, throwing back to last round when they had that surprising win over Sydney. They build off of that and have another solid performance. You got Josh Corbett leading the way with 4 goals of his own, and you got Gold Coast starting to creep up the ladder, maybe making some moves. I mean, they're still not in the finals. There's still a couple of games out of that. Of course, a lot of the teams are at this point in the season. But we're starting to see some signs from Gold Coast. Could they be a little more of the underrated team in the picture?
Like I said at the start of the year, and I think a lot of people, because a lot of the media is in Victoria,
Mhm.
the Gold Coast kind of gets forgotten about a bit. I think many people forget how much talent there is there, how many really good players play there. And I think when Raul went down early in the season against West Coast, I think a lot of people were like, well, it'll be like last year. Raul's done. There goes Gold Coast. We don't have to
Mhm.
worry about them. There is still a ton of really good talent that plays really good footy. And Stewie Dew, their coach, has got this team humming right now. A big, tough, really good win over the Sydney Swans. And to go to the MCG, where like almost half the team had never played a competitive AFL game in the MCG,
That's
and you go
insane.
beat Collingwood.
Mhm.
Again, this is not the Collingwood of the last couple of years where they're a finals contender. This is a Collingwood team that is literally a dumpster fire on top of another dumpster fire right now. They just cannot get anything going. But Gold Coast played Collingwood out of the MCG. You would have never said that 3 years ago. You
Mm-mm.
wouldn't have. You
Nope.
just would not have. All due respect, Stewie Do, keep up the great work. I love what you're doing at the Gold Coast. I think you've got a ton of talent. I think he's trying to survive without a ruck, and for them to win this game against one of the best rucks in the comp in Brody Grundy, and for you to not make that a massive disadvantage for you, shows not only is this Gold Coast team going to be a push for the finals if they can keep this up, but that they really threw Collingwood even more into the everybody is questioning, to the point where they're coming into this round. There's people talking about North beating Collingwood this week.
I,
There are
I think
people
it's legitimate,
talking
especially
about it.
after what North Melbourne did to Melbourne this round, which we'll get to later in the show.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of fuel to that. But I mean, you got on one side of the spectrum, you got Dewey. Then on the other opposite side of the spectrum, you got Nathan Buckley and Donnie. We talked about this last round, but I think it might be time for him to go. Because what
I've
are you really doing there in Collingwood that's working, that's being productive? I know there's a lot of times where you have a bad coach or a bad team, but you still have a good coach. That's actually, you can have an all-around bad team. You cannot be winning any games, but at least you can be kind of working towards something, building towards something maybe for the next season, or focusing on some positives here or there that you want to work on. You just so fast into the game. There are no signs of that in Collingwood. Literally everything is a negative. And it, I don't know what else. What, do you really think Buckley's going to be able to turn things around this season? If he's not fired this round, he's going to be fired after they lose to North Melbourne.
I've heard that many Melbourne media say if North beats Collingwood, Bucks may not survive the end of the round,
There's
and
no
that's
way.
and I would understand it. I really would. I mean, this team just looks disheveled as all get out. They put Jordan DeGoey in this game, and Jordan DeGoey literally looked like he'd rather be on a beach somewhere in Maui. Like, I mean, he did not want to be there. There was very little effort. I mean, I've watched some of the shows, and there's one where his guy gets the ball and he's just jogging along as this guy's sprinting up the field. It's like there's no effort. And so I don't know. I know he
That's
got
a
called.
sign of a coach losing their team.
Well, and he got, and I guess Jordan he did get called out by a few of his teammates in the locker room, and it sounds like he took it relatively well. There weren't many issues with it, but this is a Collingwood team that is absolutely in shambles. And right now, I feel for Bucks. If I'm Bucks, I don't try to re-sign a contract. I run away. But that's me personally. I think this Collingwood team has so much depth, so much talent,
Mm-hmm.
that they should not be performing the way they are. They look like they've checked out, and it's only round 7, and that's really sad to say for such a big
Mm-hmm.
club that is used to being a finals contender and a flag contender as well.
And when you have a situation like that, it is a coaching problem. That there's no other way to put it. But at least positives for me is a GWS fan, because just another round, Donnie, is when all weekend long I had the fight song playing in my head, because it always feels so good to be able to play it. It doesn't happen too often for me, but more often than not, at least in the recent rounds, I've been able to celebrate because GWS gets a huge win over Adelaide, beating them by my lucky number 67 points in this one. And they follow up a good game, as I alluded to earlier with the Western Bulldogs. They only get better, and they carry that momentum into this round, and they absolutely put a walloping on these Crows, helped by their savior, making his GWS debut, Jesse Hogan. First game after being traded from Frio last year, and thank you so much, 1 week at a time. Your club is really helping out the Giants right now. He scores 4 goals in this one, leads the match in his first game of the season, and the season looked lost. I have hope, Donnie. It might be false hope, might be false confidence, but it is there nonetheless. GWS might be looking at a finals berth if they're able to keep this up.
You're only 4 points back out of the finals after that win, so I'm the hopes are still there, and the debut of Jesse Hogan. Jesse Hogan has absolute field day on an Adelaide Crows team that I think are finally starting to fall back.
Mm-hmm.
I think they started off the season well. They've fallen back. Tex Walker is not as hot as he was early in the season, and the great return of Lockie Whitfield from his liver laceration. And he has a great return in this game for the GWS Giants. They are getting some of their superstars back. They're getting healthy, and they're winning games of footy.
And they got Toby Green till 2026. Just got put that out there. Hell yeah, great choice.
And they re-signed him, which is I think a great piece of business. I honestly, in our messaging that we had earlier, I think he's the captain going forward.
Yes.
I think Canelio. I think they convince Canelio to step down as the captain. I think it would be best for the club if they let Toby Green continue to stay. But this is just a great Giants performance. I mean, they showed why there's still people that were saying that this team has the talent, that they shouldn't be 15th and lower. They should be right there around 8th, 9th, 10th. They should be in the finals discussion. So for them to get another big win, like I said, they're only 4 points out of the playoff spots after this round. I mean, this is a Giants team. I think they're starting to hit their stride at just the right time. And they've still got guys, Davis, DeBoer, still to come back. So this is a GWS team that's going to be a threat to teams in the comp for the rest of the season.
They're going to be making big noise as we head towards the finals later in the season. But one team that's trending the opposite way is the Adelaide Crows. And their hot start to the season, they started off 3-1. It's looking like a thing of a past at this point. So I have to ask, Donnie, were they contenders or are they just pretenders? Because they're only 3 wins of the season or over Geelong. That was at the beginning of the season. That's when it was a lot more of a questionable Geelong team that was not fully healthy. They beat Gold Coast, a team that's looking a little better now, but at that point was in shambles. And then they have a win over North Melbourne, which is the current wooden spoon for the league. What do you think about this?
This is an Adelaide team I agree with you. They started off really well, and I think their schedule really helped them out. Their only blemish in the first 4 games was that tough game against the Swans, and even as a diehard Swans fan, I had to admit if Adelaide kicked straight, that would have been a much different game.
Yes,
it was. But I think the Crows' inexperience and young talent is starting to kind of be exposed in these last few games a little bit. Are they hitting the wall that I think the Swans players were hitting a few rounds ago? We'll really have to see. I believe that the game is starting to come back to the way it was with the coaching staffs. And is Matty Nick's style, was it more beneficial when the game was wide open, ball, fast moving footy? Now that the game's kind of tightened up a little bit, and a lot of these coaches have kind of figured out defensively how to keep the ball from going down the field, down the field. I think Matty Nix is one of those coaches that might pay for it because the game is not open. It doesn't help his team as much as it did early in the season.
Yeah. I'm okay with this GWS team, though. I'm super excited about the next round, and then we'll be giving our predictions here soon enough. And then the next game we get into is St. Kilda and the Hawthorn Hawks, with St. Kilda taking this one by 69 points. Nice. But in this game, you had the Saints gain their first win after back-to-back blowout losses. Hawthorn just unable to keep the momentum going after their win over Adelaide in that thriller of a game last round. Jack Higgins leading the way with 4 goals with this one for the Saints. And I'm kind of unsure of what to make of either of these teams, because both of them have shown flashes. Both of them have gotten wins. Both of them have taken bad losses. So does this game really mean anything long term to either one of these teams? Are they both still bad? Do they both still have hope? Donnie, can you tell me what to think? Because I don't know.
This game is rather confusing, because if you look at the final score and you look at the previous form, you're like, where did this one come from? You would have thought Hawks get a good win against the Adelaide Crows. They look like they're playing well. I honestly, and I'm not a person that says one player can change a game,
Mm-hmm.
but I think one player can change a team. And I think Paddy Ryder coming back for the St. Kilda Saints was the change St. Kilda needed. He is a dominant ruckman that can tap the ball anywhere. And when he's got some of the great midfielders that he has on that St. Kilda team, and the fact that they finally moved Bobby Hill out of the middle and into the halfback flanker position. And I
Mm-hmm.
think he absolutely excelled there. This is a Hawthorn team that I said from the beginning. I think this is a bottom 4 team. I think they're trying to slowly work some young players in. They've still got some old heads. They just don't have the talent to be there. Is this St. Kilda's Phoenix rising from the ashes and becoming the finals team that everybody expects? I don't know, because this is not a Hawthorn team I deem this victory over as being a impressive victory. I think Paddy Ryder changed this to be a much more lopsided game than it ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
St. Kilda's matchup, I think this week, let's see, really is Gold Coast. Okay. This is going to be one of those games. They beat Gold Coast. They beat Gold Coast impressively. Then I'm a little bit more on, I think the Saints are back. We will have to see. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into this. I think they've got a little bit more positive mojo now, but I want to see how they do against a Gold Coast, how they do against a Port Adelaide, how they do against some of the more elite teams in the competition. This Hawks team, all due respect to Alistair Clarkson, this is a bottom 4 team.
They're kind of looking like it looked like they were exceeding expectations a little earlier in the year, but now they're looking like the Hawks team that we're all thinking was going to be near or at the bottom of the ladder. We'll see if they're able to pick up, and we'll see what the hell St. Kilda is able to do with a win like this. But the next game takes us to another shocker and another game that I, once again, Donnie, can't seem to make sense of it, because we had Brisbane, we had Port Adelaide. Brisbane looking like an iffy team right now. Port Adelaide looking like one of the better teams in the league, like we've seen over the last 2-3 seasons. So we get a 93-44 Brisbane win in this one, because that makes sense. The Lions, for the first time this year, though, they make it over the 500 hump. They move up to 4-3. Port Adelaide with his second loss on the season. You got Charlie leading the way. I mean, Charlie Cameron, and something that dangerous trio is really coming along. I know you got some points on those guys, but Charlie Cameron, 4 goals in this one, and I just got to ask, what happened to Port Adelaide in this match?
Oh, just a real quick story. So this game was playing simultaneously as the Swans game. So and the cool thing about the Watch AFL app, and I guess it was maybe the coverage from Australia that I picked up, is the score for this game was in the
Mm-hmm.
bottom right hand corner the entire game
Mm-hmm.
that I watched between the Swans and the Cats. I was peeking at it because I wanted to keep an eye on it,
Of course.
and I absolutely kid you not, 15 minutes into the game, and Brisbane had like a 15-20 point lead. I looked down and went, are you kidding me right now?
Mm-hmm.
Seriously? Seriously. And I kept watching it, and I tuned back in occasionally here or during, and I legitimately could not believe it. So when I watched the highlights later, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, Port looked, they were absolutely abysmal in the contest.
Hmm.
And I agree with you. Charlie Cameron, Eric Hipwood, and Danaher absolutely tore this defense an absolute new one. I have never seen Port's defense get absolutely torched like they did. Hipwood and Danaher started leading out to the wings, and then they let Charlie Cameron have the forward 52 himself, and he absolutely lit it up. This
Hmm.
is the Charlie Cameron that I think a lot of people expected. This is a Brisbane team. If they can keep up that type of performance against anybody, it is so hard to stop this team. Like, legitimately, Brisbane is now back in the flag contender, even without Lockie Neal. I mean, that's even more impressive. They absorb the loss of a Brownlow medalist, and you go and beat a Port Adelaide team that, yes, they were without Travis Boak, but this was still a Port Adelaide team that had one of the most impressive lists in the entire league.
Hmm.
And you absolutely obliterate them. I mean, Ken Hinkley said it in his press conference. He said, we got beat by, I think in his press conference, he mentioned contest 10 times because that's how bad they were beaten in contests. So this starts to throw up, can Port travel? Because Port's
Hmm.
two losses are both on the road and both by massive margins. This is going to kill them in their percentages unless they win games at home and all their wins are blowouts to kind of even out their percentages. So this puts a few question marks on Port Adelaide. Is are they fragile on the road? Are they better only at home? I mean, are they having West Coast syndrome? The same thing. West Coast home, absolutely dominant. On the road, absolutely abysmal. I didn't think I would say that for Port. I honestly thought Port would be much more of a consistent team because they're built really well. I think they're built for any kind of ground throughout the entire comp.
Hmm.
So for them to have this type of performance, I'm the questions now can kind of be starting to be put out there. Is this Port team a home dominant team and a road struggling team?
Mm. Yeah, that's we got a similar team that is going to round out round seven, but that's going to have to be the thing. Anytime for every other game for Port Adelaide this season, always the first thing you got to check is where they are playing, because especially if you want to go to your tipping, just find where they're playing and you pick win or lose. It's really that simple. It seems like with this team. It's a game that wasn't simple at all, though, was my match of the round, and that was Sydney versus Geelong. I know Donnie. Oh man, as soon as I saw this game, I knew, oh boy, he's gonna have a lot to say, not only because they get a huge win, but because of a little controversy that went down in this one. But we will get to that momentarily, because Sydney, they win a thriller of a back and forth game, and they get back into the win column. And this was just a game of huge momentum swings. And it seems like, oh, one team's running away with it. They kick 3 or 4 goals in a row. Oh, the other team comes back. They kick 3 or 4 goals in a row. And especially that first to like 1-2 quarters, that's all the game was. And this was so much fun to watch. I'm sure, Donnie, you were having a heart attack and constantly have to check your blood pressure on this one because it's probably way too high. But this
Oh man.
why this was such a huge game, though, is because there's a really big, what we were talking last week, is this was a huge prove it game for either team to prove if they were a legit finals contender. Sydney proved that this evening. They proved it with how greedy they were and with the performance of play that they're able to put out. Geelong, they can be a finals contender, but there's nothing really proving it yet. There's still some questions that remain about them. But Donnie, take it away, get into this game and get into how you think that kind of mark, no mark whole scenario should have played out.
Okay, we'll go through the rest of it before we get to the ending of the game
The
because
juicy stuff.
basically, I mean, the first quarter for Sydney was absolutely disastrous. They
Yeah.
they let the
Oh,
Cats
well,
hop in.
besides Tom Papley getting the first goal of the game, it was all bad.
Oh yeah, the Geelong just absolutely obliterated the Swans. There for a while, I thought we were going to have a repeat of the Gold Coast game. But Sydney, after quarter time, I don't know if what adjustments they made, but they just
All of
everything
them.
tightened. everything tightened up defensively, and they started moving the footy better. I think the ball movement got better, and they just really chipped away at this Geelong team. They never let Geelong get more than about 15 points up. They were always staying in the game.
Mhm.
And Sydney just kept up the pressure. They kept coming. And this was a game that, I mean, if you watch social media as this game got closer and closer to the end, I can't tell you how many messages I was getting from people. I mean, I was up. This game was at 4:40, 4:25 a.m. my time.
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad because you can just kind of go into your day, but it is kind of weird because you got to set
Mhm.
that alarm. But I mean, I kid you not that this game just was so exciting. It was such a great game of footy. The only thing that marred this game was the umpiring. And I know I'm going to hear this from Geelong fans. They go, well, you rose-colored glasses. You're happy because Sydney won. Okay, I'm going to say it right now, Geelong fans. Yes, it was a mark. Okay, I've heard several Swans fans come out and go, well, they've heard the referee say it's touched. I've listened to it so many times. I still have not heard it clearly. So as of right now, the only umpire that I heard say anything was it was not 15. It was 21.8 meters. It should have been a mark.
Mhm.
There's two arguments that okay, rewind. Three arguments that I've heard, and I agree with all of them. One is kind of a dirty shot, but I'm going to say it. Karma, Brisbane. I'm going to say it like that. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to say it. Brisbane got SOL'd on a call the same
Mhm.
way. Karma happened.
Yep.
Okay, say it that way. Two, I also agree with what a lot of people said is there were 6 seconds on the clock when he caught the mark.
Mhm.
Air quotes for those that are listening to the podcast. Even if they would have paid it, there's no guarantee Jeremy Cameron kicks it in the first place because it's on an
And to
extreme
interrupt
mark.
you real quick, they say the umpire has come out and said after the game that they should have paid the mark.
Yes, they
Yeah.
should have paid the mark. They didn't, and we're not going. We can't go back over it. We can't change the game. There's no guarantee Jeremy Cameron kicks that goal anyways because I don't think he's able to run around the mark because if the siren goes off and he runs off the mark, it's
Mhm.
play on, game over.
Mhm.
So there's no guarantee that you're going to win the game anyways. Should you have gotten the opportunity to kick the ball? Yes, you should have. Now, there's another little bit of controversy on the throw in. Everybody's like, well, roll bottom didn't try to get rid of, should have been holding the ball. The siren goes off before the referee blows the whistle. So it's
Mhm.
hard to get a holding the ball when the game is over on the siren. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here's a little bit of what some people would call coaches rose colored glasses, but it's not. Okay. When I went back, there are 2 or 3 calls that went Geelong's way that if you really look at them evenly, not one-sided, they're horribly missed calls. There is a free
Mhm.
kick on Jake Lloyd when they called a high tackle or a arm chop. I'm still not sure what it was. And this crazy part is when you watch the replay, he does neither. He neither hits him nor does he chop his arms. Close simply drops the ball. They call a free kick, close kicks a goal. There's
Mhm.
6 points there. Okay. There is an insufficient attempt to keep the footy in play on
Mhm.
Dylan Stevens. But if you watch it, the reason that he knocks the ball out of play is because Joel Selwood pushes him in the back. It's subtle. If you're not paying attention, it's subtle, but it's enough that it gets Dylan Stevens leaning forward. So when he tries to paddle the ball forward to keep in possession, that's why it goes out of play. 2 kicks later, what happens? Geelong goal. I've already there proved there's 12 points there. Okay. So that if you take those 12 points off, this is not a 2-point game. This is a 14-point game.
What about the ultimate trump card though?
And the ultimate trump card is how many behinds Geelong did you kick? You
Mm.
kicked
Mhm.
16.
Mhm. Mhm.
Again, Cats fans, I respect you. I understand your gripe. But when you say that the game is only down to one missed call in the last 6 seconds, you were completely changing the outlook. And if we're going to make that, you could go back and find several calls in that game that could have went either way, that could have completely affected the game.
Yep.
Do I understand it's annoying? Yes. Do I think the umpiring is atrocious at times? Yes. Okay. Yes, the umpiring is atrocious, but that's the way the umpiring is made. No matter how many years I've watched this, because of its gray, subjective nature, every call is not going to be exactly the same. Each
Mhm.
referee sees it differently, no matter what. I understand holding the ball is still the most infuriating call because one ref, you can get tackled, do a 3/4 spin, and still be able to get rid of it and nothing happened. Another ref, you can be grabbed by the jumper, not do anything, and they'll call holding the ball if you start moving.
Yeah.
It's just the weirdest thing, but that's just the way the interpretation is made. Do I understand it's frustrating? Yes. Do I get it? Yes. But there are times, just watch the footy, because complaining about the umpiring does not do anything for you.
No.
It's not going to change. I've never seen a referee go, "Hey, that fan's got a great idea there. I'm going to change my mind." It's not worth the stress. I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting watching the game on my iPad. I go, "Ugh," and I just go, okay, I'm just gonna have to let it go, because you just have to accept it's never going to be perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we good? Take a deep breath.
I'm
Exhale.
good.
Take
I
take a
just
sip.
it
No,
was it,
every
it,
single
it
point you
was
made is 100% valid. I have yet to see a good rebuttal. I saw you make those points. I've heard those points. I've yet to see a good and actual, like, reasonable rebuttal to any one of those from a reasonable Geelong fan. That just hasn't existed. But hey, end of the day, Geelong, you lose. Sydney, you win. Let's move on to the next round.
But
Eh,
real
yeah.
real quick before we move on, though, this
Yes.
Cats team did prove they are a finals team. Okay,
Mhm.
they don't have Dangerfield, and I said this in a tweet to one Cats fan who basically kind of said what I said. It's the 16 behind is what really killed them more than anything.
Yeah.
And I specifically reached out to that person and I said, I have mad respect for you to be able to say that, because there's a lot of Geelong fans, they focus on one thing and they lose their minds. Okay.
Mhm.
This is a Cats team that I think will play finals. I think they're starting to get their mojo. They still don't have Dangerfield. They're still kind of iffy. Their biggest question mark is their ruck, but they've got a ton of good talent. They've got a ton of great players. Jeremy Cameron is fitting and Hawkins are fitting. Okay. They're going to be in the finals. This is not going to kill their finals opportunity. I don't think they're going to miss the finals by 4 points to where you can go, this is the reason why. This is a Cats team that will make the finals. I have a hard time not seeing it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Especially when Dangerfield gets back in the roster and Jeremy Cameron still looks like crap in blue and white. I am not over that one bit. I'm not salty or jealous. No, that's not my type. Let's move on to the next game. Let's stop talking about that traitor. North Melbourne in Melbourne. Okay, Donnie, here we go. Here's my one per round. It seems like good team versus bad team. But wait, it wasn't really that case, because if you look at this game, if you just look at the final score, you see these by 30. You go, okay, that's reasonable. I would think this team would have put some more distance between each other, but hey, that's a fair game. But when you actually look at the game and you see that North Melbourne was leading this game pretty much until halfway through the third, I was shocked at the kind of footy that I was watching, because I don't think anyone saw this coming. The good thing, though, is for Melbourne is that they eventually get their buzz in check. They turn it on about halfway through the fourth, and they just put 4 straight goals, and they win this game by that 30 margin. But you gotta think, especially with the last 2 games we've seen out of these D's, Donnie. We saw them against Richmond last round, and we've seen them against North Melbourne now. Both times, they've had very close games until the end where they just kind of turn it on. Are they playing with fire? And are they making things way too close than they should be?
Okay, and I said it last week, and this is not me. This is not me trying to play big-headed. Coach Hess was right moment, but I said it last week.
No, take your credit, Donnie. Take your
If you
credit.
listen to it, I said this North Melbourne team is going to surprise. I think this D's team are going to take them lightly. They're going to have had a little, they're going to come out flat
Mhm.
against the D's team that's coming off the biggest win of the season. Everybody's patting their backs, telling them you're doing great. You should beat the Roos easily. And the Roos did the Mike Tyson. They came out, punched him in the mouth in the first quarter, and the D's did not respond quickly. And if you look, and the crazy part is, I just looked at the goal snake. At
Mhm.
one point, halfway through the fourth quarter, it was only a 6-point lead for the D's.
Yep. It
This
was right
North Melbourne team was in this game till probably about the last 10 minutes of the game.
there. Mhm.
So this North Melbourne team is improving. They're playing better footy. It's not great footy, but it's better footy. I honestly, this was a D's team. I think they took North Melbourne lightly and they got surprised. They pulled it out in the end. They win by 30. Again, as you said, the
Mhm.
final score is not indicative of whether this game
No.
was a this
No.
game was a 2-3 goal game max most of the game. So I thoroughly enjoyed seeing this Roos team show improvement. I cannot wait for the game between them and Collingwood, which is really scary to think 17 and 18 in the ladder would be a game I'm interested in. But I am, because this Rouge team actually has some confidence out of
Mhm.
this, because you just played the number one team on the ladder after this round really closely, really well. And I think you showed that there is improvement, as disastrous as it was previous two rounds before.
Mhm.
The Roos right now are a team kind of like Adelaide last year. I think they're gonna get their one at least. And if I
Mhm.
think they get their one, two and three may follow after that. They're gonna nip somebody
Yeah.
because they're starting to play better. Ben Cunningham's coming back, the ageless wonder of North Melbourne at 29 is having another good season. That some of their youngsters are starting to play well. And when you can play that well against a really good D's team, I think if I'm a Collingwood player, I'm a little worried that this team that has been destroyed several weeks is
Mhm.
going to give you everything next round.
And the thing about the Roos too is that what I've been saying like over the last few rounds of footy, the Roos may be a bad team. They may be one of the worst teams, if not right now the worst team in the league. But that hasn't stopped them from playing hard. They haven't taken plays off. They haven't jogged. They haven't just phoned in the game. These are players that are trying to win this game the best they can. And this is what happens when they still put in this effort. They're 100% outgunned by this D's team. There's no doubt about it. It's two different classes of footy teams. But when you put in effort like this, and when the other team doesn't put in the same effort, this is when you could win footy games. So hats off to North Melbourne, and I would have some more good news for. I think I've seen one Roos fan, and it was just the one you interviewed as part of Diners Disposal's American AFL fans. Fantastic series. Please check that out if you haven't yet. All teams besides the secret Gold Coast team that keeps on eluding us, they are Bigfoot, is what it seems like. A Gold Coast fan is just as I think there might have been more Bigfoot sightings than we've seen Gold Coast fans. So please reach out to us if you are one, or if you know one. But let's move on to the next second to last game of the round. Donnie, we got Essendon, we got Carlton, we got a team that everyone thinks is bad. A team that you said was going to be the wooden spoon for this year. We got a team in Carlton that a lot of people were hot on and had high expectations for. And for a second, it looked like those dreams for Carlton of finals were still just going to be in the trash, because about halfway through that second quarter, this game was looking really, really bad for them. It looked like Essendon might just be running away with this one, but they get it within about a point at halftime. Then they slowly chip away at this game, and Carlton ends up taking this one. Good news for Essendon, though, that even in a loss, you still have your stud, Cale Hooker. He had another week of 5 goals, and he's still third in the league in goal scoring. So they have that to hold a little pride on. And I think one of my favorite parts about this game is former Bomber turned blue. Adam Satt was just booed out of the stadium every single time he even touched the ball. And what made it worse for those Bomber fans is that he's the one that helped turn this game around in the second, and he helped the Blues pull off this win. So is this going to be how Carlton becomes the team we thought they could be? And is this game going to end up saving their season?
Oh man, this is a basketball game in a footy field. 123 to 107. Neither team played very good defense. Unfortunately, as much as I love the Blues scoring and offense, and Sam Walsh is becoming an absolute all-Australian lock at the pace he is going. He's becoming, I think he's eclipsing Patty Cripps as the best player on the Carlton Blues by an absolute mile at the pace he is going. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I look at this and I go, I'm still worried that this Carlton defense is like Swiss cheese. There's too many holes. They give up too many points. This is an Essendon team. They're young. They're inconsistent. They're not going to be able to play the same style every single week. So though
Mm-hmm.
Carlton does get the chocolates this week, um, they're still danger signs. You give up 107 to an Essendon team that has Cal Hooker, who's a great player,
Mm-hmm.
mind you. He's kicking a ton of goals, but he's not exactly the most mobile forward in the world. Um, so I take this one with a grain of salt. This is a nice win for Essendon, but
Mm-hmm.
again, this is a team that's 14th or lower is going to be 14th or lower on the ladder. Essendon they're still in that kind of rebuilding stage. They're so many young talent. They're playing better. They're going to scare some people, but I still think that there's some teams above them that are going to keep them at the lower part of the ladder. And this is a Carlton team that as of right now, they're underperforming. They are not winning games of footy that they should. They're losing games because they're giving up such big scores.
Mm-hmm.
So I take this with a grain of salt. This is good for the confidence. Adam Sod, Adam
Thank you.
Sod. It's
Thank
funny,
you.
like
Yep.
the grass. Adam Sod
I love a good
is
sod. Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. It was great. I'm a little disappointed that they booed him because the Essendon fans booed him. I understand it's the rivalry,
It's
but
a cheap boo.
he did so many good things for you. He got moved. He got moved for a good reason because Essendon. I mean, he wants to win a flag. Essendon is not anywhere near a flag at this present point. I think they're 2 or 3 years away from being a flag contender.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. Did I think he moved to a team that's a flag contender? When he moved there with Zach Williams, I thought they could become it. But obviously, this year they are. Unfortunately, I do not see Carlton being if they make the finals, they will not be there long, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
this is a good game. I like it. It was absolute in track meet insanity for the
Mm-hmm.
last 10 minutes of the game. But this is a kind of grain of salt win for Carlton. Let's see how they do in the next few rounds.
Exactly. And then wrapping up this round of footy action, let's go on over to Optus Stadium. And I'm starting to think, Don, like genuinely, I will believe that you could take academy players, but as long as they have a West Coast Guernsey on, and as long as they're playing in Optus Stadium, doesn't matter if there's fans there or not, they will somehow pull off a win because how the you this I don't know how you explain this. Literally, like missing half their team, and West Coast still beats the hell out of Fremantle at home in Optus. They win their 11th straight Western Derby in front of no one. And West Coast season's really just been all over the place at this point. They haven't won or lost back-to-back games their whole season. If you look through it, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Now a win. I still don't know when things are going to solidify. The only thing that is certain this footy season is that if you put West Coast in Optus, I guess you're going to win the game of footy. That's just how it works.
This is just a West Coast team that they played a great game against a Frio team that has just they played so well, but I don't know what it was. Frio just did not look the same.
No.
The midfield just did not have. Now again, you're facing Nick Nui, who's a very influential ruck,
Mm-hmm.
and Tim Kelly goes absolutely bananas with 42 disposals in this game. The crazy part about it is 42 disposals, 0 marks, 0 marks. It's the craziest 42 disposal game I've ever seen.
I know that was possible.
But the crazy part about it is that when you have Darling, you have Oscar Allen, and you have Kennedy, they are an absolute nightmare to try to defend. And they literally exposed Frio. They pulled everybody out except for those three and let those three have the 50, almost about 50, 60 meters around their goal. And they just let them,
Hmm.
they sat deep. They opened up the field a lot more and they absolutely destroyed Frio's defense. Unfortunately, they lost a couple more injuries this weekend. Frio is just absolutely snake bitten
It's tough.
with injuries. To all the Frio fans that we know, I feel so sorry for your team because you just, as soon as you think you've got things going on the right track, somebody goes down with an injury. I think they just
Hmm.
had another one go down with another injury the last day or so. So this is the Frio team. Unfortunately, they were tracking really well, but this game absolutely is devastating because 10 straight matches in the Derby that they had a chance that many people thought this was their chance to win, and empty stadium, you didn't have to worry about the Eagles faithful, and they just didn't do enough to win this game, unfortunately. And now Frio becomes the new Brisbane Lions as they will be
Mm.
traveling for the next couple of weeks due to some of the COVID issues. The game this week between them and Brisbane has been relocated from Optus now to the GABA. Thankfully, they play each other twice. So the second game that was supposed to be at the GABA around 21, I believe, will now be in Optus. Granted that the COVID situation has righted itself by then, which it
Hmm.
should if they continue the way it is. So, and then they will play Essendon in Victoria the week after before they finally return,
Mm.
hopefully, in COVID free Western Australia.
Fingers crossed that that all works out. But I another round, Donnie, and another season where I just my brain hurts trying to actually think of trying to make sense of this. Like I just don't know, and I'm not complaining though because I absolutely love the ridiculousness. If you're looking for parody, yeah, there is too much of that. It seems like football and the NFL super predictable a lot of time. The NBA absolutely ridiculously predictable. MLB a little bit so. The AFL, Donnie, I don't think they know what they're going to have for breakfast each day of the week. So what a sport football is.
Oh, oh,
It,
it is quite entertaining for sure.
oh man, but that's going to wrap it for round 7. Donnie, it's your time to shine with Donnie's team of the round. Let's hear it because it looked pretty good last round, and was it hard to try to find one for this round too?
I don't think it was extreme. I don't think it was extremely difficult. You had a lot of really good performances, several
Mm-hmm.
repeats from last round, and several new debuters. So we will go through it really quick. We'll start on the defensive end, and your beloved GWS Giants gets the first guy in as Lockie Whitfield makes his way back onto the field with a great debut for the season. 30
Mm-hmm.
disposals, a behind, 2 intercept marks, 6 scoring involvements, and I love this,
Dang, that's nice.
706 meters gained for the roving halfback from the GWS, coming back from a lacerated liver. It is great to see him back. Lockie Whitfield is an absolute star.
Mm-hmm.
Returning from last week's team again, Christian Salem from the Melbourne Demons, 29 disposals, 8 intercept marks, and 5 score involvements from the halfback there as well. First time in my team of the week, Gold Coast Brandon Ellis with
Ooh.
35 disposals, a goal for the defender, not very often, 5 intercept marks, and 3 score involvements from the former Tiger, now Gold Coast Sun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give a little bit of love here to the North Melbourne Rouge. Aaron Hall,
Ooh, would you look at
33
that?
disposals, 4 intercept marks, 4 score involvements, a goal assist, and 792 meters gained for the defender from the Melbourne Rouge. Giving a little bit of love to the Tigers defenders here in Bashir Hooley. A really cool story. Bashir Hooley is of the Muslim faith, and we are in the middle of Ramadan, and
Mm.
he comes up with an absolutely great performance during this holy week for the Muslim faith. 31 disposals, a goal, 6 score involvements, and 2 intercept marks. Also, in that same Friday night game, we have the Western Bulldogs little master Caleb Daniels has 34 disposals, 7 intercept marks, 3 score involvements, and 438 meters gained. Those are the 6 defenders. We'll hop into the midfield here. We'll start off with the big man, the ruck. Again, Mr. Brody Grundy with 21 disposals, 37 hitouts to advantage, 1 goal, 7 score involvements, and 5 intercept marks for the lumbering ruckman. Hopping into the midfield, former Swan and now St. Kilda St. Zach Jones has 37 disposals, 2 goals behind, 13 score involvements, and
Mm.
497 meters gained for the tough minded midfielder. Another North Melbourne Roo finds his way into it as Ben Cunningham has 35 disposals, 2 goals, 5 intercept marks, 9 score involvements, and 444 meters gained by the follically challenged midfielder from the North Melbourne Roos. Richmond's superstar, who I believe really had a dusty type of performance for the Richmond Tigers, is Shai Bolton, hopping in with 22 disposals, 3 goals behind, 10 score involvements, and 529 meters gained for the young midfielder, who I think really, really helped Richmond win that game there. Give a little love to the Port Adelaide Powers, Ollie Wines,
Mm.
37 disposals, a goal, a behind, 3 intercept marks, 9 score involvements, and 451 meters gained for the ever useful midfielder out of the Power. And last but not least, in the midfield, you can't not say it, Mr. Tim Kelly of the West Coast Eagles with
Yep.
42 disposals, 2 behinds, 2 goal assists, 13 score involvements, and 599 meters gained for the ever great midfielder from the West Coast. And now to the forwards, my favorite part. I love this. We'll start off with Brisbane's Charlie Cameron, 13 disposals, 4 goals, 4 behinds, and 9 score involvements for the awesome forward pocket for the Brisbane Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Some GWS love. Mr. Jesse Hogan hops onto the list with
Has
15
to.
disposals,
Has to.
4 goals, a behind, 8 score involvements, and 5 marks during the game. We'll then move on to Melbourne's Bailey Fritsch, 14 disposals, 6 goals, a behind, and 10 score involvements for the fleet footed midfielder who has escaped sanction from the MRO after getting a game. He was got off, so he will be able to play against the Sydney Swans this week.
Mm.
We mentioned him a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cal Hooker of the Essendon Bombers joins the forwards with 15 disposals, 5 goals, a behind, 7 marks, a goal assist, and 11 score involvements for the awesome forward of the Essendon Bombers. A little bit of a surprise here from the Gold Coast. Josh Corbett, 16
Mm.
disposals, 4 goals, 2 behinds, 7 score involvements, and 406 meters gained for the forward from the Gold Coast. And last but not least, in the starting lineup, we mentioned him earlier at the start of the episode, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Lynch, 14 disposals, 5 goals, 3 behinds, 11 score involvements, and 12 marks in the game for the big forward from the Richmond Tigers. Let's jump on to the bench. Our defensive bench player will be St. Kilda's Hunter Clark, who had 26 disposals, 2 goals from the defender, 4 intercept marks, 10 score involvements, and 472 meters gained. The ruck, I got to give a little bit of love to this gentleman who's becoming a superstar in Sydney, Mr. Tom Hickey. 20 disposals, 1 goal, 23 hitouts, and 4 score involvements from the wild haired Ruckman.
Mm-hmm.
The midfield will give a little bit of love to the Hawthorn Hawks' Sam Mitchell.
All
38
right.
disposals behind, 7 score involvements, 7 marks altogether, and 336 meters gained. And last but not least, Mr. Harry Mackay, 12 disposals, 4 goals, 2 behinds, and 7 score involvements for the big Carlton Ruckman. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my team of the week. A lot of well deserving players. Frio fans, I know, please don't get angry with me. Not have a Frio player. Unfortunately, this week was not good for you. I
Just
almost
wasn't.
put Brayshaw in just to appease you, but I think you'll have a few performances coming up. I know Mundy and Fife will have a great game. They will
Mhm.
eventually get it. But you are not the only team that did not have a player make the roster, but there's still plenty of rounds to go.
Yes, that's for sure. Now we're going to roll on into our power rankings going into round 8. And if you look at last round, okay, we had the exact 5 in the exact same order because there really wasn't there wasn't really a better list that you could do. This round, we agree on a couple things. Melbourne at 1 and Port Adelaide at 5. But besides that, Donnie, we have a little bit of disagreements here. And of course, if you follow us on our socials on Twitter at Fourth Long Radio, Instagram at Fourth Long Radio, on YouTube, links are in the bio and links are in the description. If you are anywhere else, just go to thefourthandlong.com for all the links to everything Fourth and Long. But if you follow us, thank you, first of all. Second of all, you are able to get the power rankings early as they are released every Tuesday evening, American time, and about afternoon, Australian time. Being very vague with those times, just it's around there. Okay, just it's somewhere close. Okay, but where it gets interesting is this middle 3, Donnie, because 2 of the 3 teams of those second, third, and fourth on the power rankings we have similar in the Western Bulldogs and in the Richmond Tigers. Now, I don't want to seem like a Debbie Downer. When I kind of took a step back and said, "Oh, this is where I have them," I was like, I was kind of torn. But hear me out. For me, the doggies dropped to 4. And that isn't really because I've fallen out of love with the doggies. I just think that they have holes and they have some pretty large holes there, especially on the back line. And Richmond absolutely exposed them in this. They're still, if they can, they're just going to outpoint teams because there's not very many teams that could really keep up with the scoring. But these top teams that can, they are going to be in for a rough night against those squads. So I have them at 4. I'm not completely not sold on them yet. I'm still they're going to be a finals team. There's no doubt about that. They still might finish top 4. But this game against Richmond was a little iffy, and that's also why I have Richmond moving up in this one to number 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much one of those. I've heard this discussion sometimes over here in U.S. sports is that when a team upsets a team in the top 25 in NCAA basketball,
Mm-hmm.
you would think that they would jump above them, and that's kind of how I see yours is that you have Richmond above the Western Bulldogs.
I was thinking
You know, and
it
I and
would
I
be
understand
right.
it. And if you go off the wins and loss situations, your 5 makes tons of sense. Port at 5, Western at 4, Richmond at 3, Sydney at 2, Melbourne at 1.
Sydney too,
Again,
because let me throw that in there then since you bring up
no, go ahead.
Sydney was on my top 5 last round. That didn't mean I still love the Sydney team. I've been hot on them all year. Remember, if we go
Mhm.
back 8 weeks out into the preview show, I said, Donnie, this team is going to make the finals. You weren't as hot on that idea as I was, but damn it, I said that, and then through the first 6 rounds, they were over exceeding any expectations I had for them. They're right there at number 6, just barely off the list last round. They go and they put up
Mhm.
a really solid performance over in round 7. They get back up over a good Geelong team, a finals Geelong team. Sydney still number 4 on the ladder. I like the Sydney team. When they're hot, they're hot. I'm okay with number 2.
Yeah, and I can completely see it with that. For me, I couldn't put Western below 2 because they only have 1 loss in the season, and it wasn't a loss that I'm like oh, this is a problem. This is
Hmm.
a good Richmond team. I think this Western Bulldogs team really did need that kind of reality check of there's still a few things that you're not completely perfect on.
Hmm.
It- for my list, just to compare to yours, I do have Port Adelaide like you at 5. I have Richmond at 4. I think Richmond is starting to play better, but those 2 losses previously, I think is the reason why I have them a little bit further down. I have Brisbane at 3 because Brisbane is 3-0 in their last 3, and
Hmm.
with the win over Port, which I think is a little bit more impressive because they dismantled Port
They did.
without Neil, and the fact that they're 3-0. The Swans are only 1-2 in the
Hmm.
last 3. So it's not that I don't if you made me do 6 through 10, I probably have Sydney at 6 right now. I probably have Sydney at 6 right now. So we're not super far apart when it comes to it. That's why I have Brisbane at 3, Western at 2, the Western Bulldogs at 2. My apologies, fans. I'm trying so hard. I'm so used to saying it. The Bulldogs at 2 because they were undefeated. This loss, I don't really kill them. And then obviously Melbourne at 1 because
Hmm.
they're still the only team without a blemish in the loss column. This it's all kind of how you perspective it. I literally looked at this for probably 20 minutes and it's just like, oh my gosh, if I do this, well, that doesn't really. So there was a lot of thought process to it. I think the Brisbane at 3 was probably the one I fought with myself the most because they had the 3 wins that I almost put them at 2 above the Bulldogs just
Hmm.
because they had won 3 in a row. But I think what the Bulldogs have done over the last 5, I think I kept them there at 2. So I'm gonna keep them there at 2. But if they were to falter again, then I think they tumble below the 2 spot for me.
Yeah. I would love to see what you guys have to think about this. So let us know what your top 5 looks like, whether you agree a little more with Donnie, whether you agree a little more with me. Let us know over on the socials or even the YouTube comments. And with that, Donnie, we're going to roll into our round 8 tipping. Hopefully, this round goes a little bit better than the last round for both of
Can't
us.
do
And
much.
maybe,
Can't,
yeah, can't get much
can't do
worse.
much worse.
Oh, let's start off with a really fun one here. Richmond and Geelong. If it's the rematch of what happened in last year's finals, and I have the same score, or maybe not the same score, but the same result going from last year in this one.
I'm right with you on this one. I think Richmond's performance last week, they play really good under the big lights. Having Dusty back, I think is great, and no Dangerfield, I think
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit of a big loss for the Cats. I think the Cats' loss might affect them a little bit. Richmond's on the right train when it comes to it. It will be at the MCG.
Mm-hmm.
I think Richmond's got all the right momentum in the right place. I think Geelong keeps this a little bit closer than some people. I think it's under 2 goals. I think Geelong's got a great team. Richmond's
Yeah.
got a great team, but I
Yep.
think Richmond's just going to be able to wear out this Cats team just enough to get the chocolates on this one.
Mm-hmm. And then the next game of the round is going to be the GWS Giants against the Essendon Bombers. Essendon's looking really good this year, but I think GWS is really finally start to operate on all cylinders, really starting to get into stride in this year. And I think they're going to be able to capitalize off a solid last couple of rounds to be able to get another good game here and be able to pull off the victory.
I'm with you as well on this one. I like the Giants. I think the return of Lockie Whitfield, having Jesse Hogan back, and then the fact that they just did sign Toby Green, I think there's a lot of positive momentum
Mhm.
up on the western side of Sydney. I think this is
The
a game where
greater
where
Western side
they
of Sydney. Thank you very much.
let's calm down a little bit, relax. I'm not saying it's not great. I'm just saying western part of Sydney.
Watch your mouth, John.
Okay.
What I know, Sydney's
No,
overrated. It's not
I
about the greater Western side. It's greater for a reason. We're greater than the rest,
uh
Donnie.
calm down there,
Sorry,
Skippy.
yeah.
Calm down.
Calm down.
So I just I like Essendon. The biggest thing that I would say I'd want to look at is Shane Mumford playing
Mm,
because every game that Shane Mumford has played this season, GWS has won. Every game that he
mhm.
has not, they have lost. I don't want to come down to it. I think Shane Mumford plays this one and then they rest him next week.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the fact that they are playing a Patty Ryder returned Essendon team, and I think they're going to need Mumford to be able to rough up Ryder a little bit so he does not get the easy hit outs on that. No, I forgot they're playing Essendon, not St Kilda.
Yeah.
Apologies. Rewind.
Skipping ahead. Jeez.
They're gonna be playing a younger ruck there for the Essendon Bombers. So I think we will go with GWS on this one.
The next game, our previewing, Donnie, just really want to get. I guess you're really excited to watch the Saints and the Suns next round. Well, that's not my cup of tea. You do you, I guess, my friend. But in this one, this is a kind of a tough one for me because St. Kilda, they've shown flashes that they could be a solid team. But I think the more complete package and the team that's coming along a little better is going to be the Gold Coast Suns. And so that's 3 straight home teams I'm going to be taking. Gold Coast is going to be able to get it done.
Well, we will finally have a disagreement on this one.
Oh.
Patty Ryder came back last week, and I think he made a massive impact for this Saints team.
Mm-hmm.
And because Patty Ryder is back, I think he will give St. Kilda much more of the footy, which I think will benefit this St. Kilda team. Yes, the game is up in Metricon, which means it's not going to be as efficient as say it were if we were to be a Marvel Stadium down in Victoria. I'm gonna give the Saints this one, but these two always play really good games. Every time it seems like they play each other, it's always a couple goal game. I think St. Kilda wins this late because Patty Ryder makes the difference there, but this is still going to be a very, very interesting game of footy.
And now the next one, speaking of Victoria and Marvel, let's head on over there for the game. My prediction for the match of the round, believe it or not, you got the 2 worst teams in footy, Donnie, and no, it's probably not going to be a match of the round. That's going to be the next game. But I'm sticking with the home team again. North Melbourne is going to get it done against the Collingwood Magpies, and they're going to get off the schneid. They're going to get the first win of the season, and Collingwood will be replaced as the worst team in the league. And you can guess Buckley could kiss his job goodbye after this round.
Am I not the only one that wanted to mic drop that? It's so bad. Oh man, I honestly I thought you were gonna go Collingwood and give me that moment of glory myself.
No, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to take your glory.
I'm actually with you on this. The way North Melbourne played the D's and the atrocious brand of footy that Collingwood played, I'm gonna go with the Roos. Todd Goldstein will be able to even up Grundy. I think the way that the youngsters for North Melbourne have been playing, I think North Melbourne can pull this one off, and I cannot wait to see them lose their minds if this happens. I want this to happen so bad just to see just the utter chaos that will happen in Victoria if Collingwood loses to North Melbourne.
Twitter is going to be so much fun when this happens.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Here we go, Donnie. How about this? I know how we could break the social medias of Australian football. North Melbourne wins, but for Collingwood, Mason Cox kicks 6.
Oh man, that would every single Twitter follower in Australia will lose their mind if that happens.
I'd be so happy if that Cox, please somehow do it. I don't even think that's possible from him, but
he's got to get in, and I don't know if he'll get if he's gonna make the squad or not. We'll have to see.
It's all good. This Mason Cox, the Coxzilla could break the internet if he's able to pull that off. The next game is actually going to be my prediction for match of the round. Sydney is going to be in it twice. We got Sydney, we got Melbourne, we got this game at the MCG, and this is a really, really tough one for me to call, Donnie, because on one side you have the undefeated team, you have the best team in all of footy, but also Sydney, I've been really with them this entire season. A lot of me, I think my heart is saying Sydney, my brain is saying the D's on this one. And so I kind of have to go with my brain because I think I'm smart. I have to go with the best team in footy until they're not. But I would not be surprised if the Sydney Swans and those young bucks are able to pull this one off.
And I can just say, repeat your answer for me because
Oh, I sound so smart right now with you agreeing with me. This is great.
No, this is a very, very complete D's team. In fact, actually, a little bit of breaking news. I don't know if you just saw that superstar Christian Petrarca has just signed a 6-year contract extension with the
Ooh,
D's. They have
ooh.
re-signed their superstar to a 6-year contract extension.
Breaking news on the show. I love it.
I do not have the figure. I do not have the figures right now. I don't think they are out yet, but I'm gonna go with the D's on this one just because I think Max Gone, Tom Hickey is going to be absolutely epic. I think those are
Mm-hmm.
two best rucks in the league this year. I think that's going to be an absolutely amazing ruck battle. The midfield battle is going to be just as good. I
Mm-hmm.
think it comes down to a late game kick, being at the MCG, having all the D's fans there. I think the D's pull this one out, but I think the Swans stay in this. I think the Swans have kind of found their mojo a little bit. I think they're starting to kind of play better. I think this is under 2 goals.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna kill me at the pace this is going as a Swans fan. I will utter that as the Swans supporter that I am. They're gonna kill me, but I think the D's just edge this one. But I agree with you. This screams game of the round for me.
Man, I'm super, super pumped about that one. The next game we're going with is this could be a more interesting and a closer game than I think many people might believe. We have Port Adelaide, we got Adelaide, we got correct me if I'm wrong, Donnie. It's another derby, right? We're going with the
The
Adelaide Derby.
showdown.
Showdown. Oh, what's the difference?
That's just what they call it. They call it in Adelaide. They call it the showdown between
Well,
Adelaide and Port Adelaide.
look at you, Adelaide, being all different and unique and special. You do you, okay? You're throwing me off though, you bastards. But I'm just trying to learn here, okay? Make it easier for me. We got Port Adelaide. We got Adelaide. Adelaide trending downward. Port Adelaide was trending upward, but they just took a bad loss to Brisbane. They're still one of the better teams in the league, so they should be able to pull this off. Adelaide might surprise a few people though. Keep it at least make it way closer than it should for a while, or they might be able to. This would be a huge upset, but Adelaide might have what it takes if they're able to get reach into the pockets, do what they did earlier in the season. They might have what it takes to be Port Adelaide, but I just don't see that happening. I see Port Adelaide coming out super fired up from what happened last round, look to right the wrongs and build to get back on track. I see Port Adelaide taking this one in the Adelaide Oval.
Yep. I'm the same. Travis Boak back for the
Do you
Port
see it
Adelaide
is as
Power.
close though? It is I'm kind
I
of
I'm Showdowns are always close. Showdowns
mm-hmm,
are always absolutely exciting. This is another game that if you look at it on paper, if you look at ladder positions, it shouldn't be a close game.
mm-hmm.
But these games are always tough. Adelaide always comes to play. It will be a Port home game via the ticketing, so there will be more Port fans. I think it's under 3 goals. I think Adelaide stays in this just because, again, that Port Adelaide plays the Adelaide Oval really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's Travis Boak being back would terrify me, but it sounds like Adelaide will get Rory Sloan back from his eye injury. So I think that will really boost the midfielding depth for the Adelaide Crows. I think this is less than 3 goals. I think Port wins this more because of their depth of scoring more than anything.
The next round or next match of the round is going to be the Hawthorn Hawks and the West Coast Eagles. Now, if you just look at it, yeah, sure, I kind of want to go with West Coast because they're the better team. But the problem here is that it's not at Optus, it is at the MCG. So call me crazy, but I'm going off my hunch. West Coast unable to win on the road this year. Every game it's been a win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. They just won. I'm going with the Hawthorn Hawks on this one.
Oh, call me a glutton for punishment. I'm gonna pick the West Coast just because of the atrocious performance that Hawthorn just had against the St. Kilda Saints, and I think the Eagles are more talented. I'm gonna take the risk of picking the Eagles, even though they're going to Victoria, where the Victoria Blues sometimes smash them. But I think West Coast will win this one. I think Hawthorn is absolutely gutted from that loss to St. Kilda. I think they went into that St. Kilda game thinking that they could get their season on the right track,
Mhm.
and it literally blew up in their faces. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be a glutton for punishment and pick the Eagles on this one.
Oh, this is gonna be a fun one. I honestly don't know what to expect. Everything says like the Eagles should. The only thing that says that
Mhm.
they are going to lose this one is that's a away game, and I guess go with history until history proves you wrong. But staying in Victoria for the second to last game of the round, we got the Western Bulldogs and we got the Carlton Blues. Western bounces back. They get a big win over a struggling Carlton team, and they probably do it by 3 to 4 goals.
Bulldogs win this one, but I think Carlton keeps this game much closer than some
Hmm.
people think. This is an offensive shootout. Both teams' defenses have been shown to be a little bit susceptible to giving up goals. Harry Mackay is that big forward that Western Bulldogs had a ton of trouble
Mm-hmm.
with. So we'll have to see how that goes. I think the Western Bulldogs win this one. I think it's under 3 goals. I think it's a little bit closer than many experts think, but I do have the doggies pulling out the win in this one.
Last match of the round is going to be a really important game for either of these two teams. Really wanted to prove that they belong in the finals. You have the Brisbane Lions, you got the Freo Dockers, and something you alluded to earlier. This is taking place at the Gabba in Queensland. And this is a really tough game for me to tip because you could easily make a claim for either two of these teams. And it really just comes down to, I guess, in games like this, Donnie, I don't know whether I should or should not. I guess I just kind of go with my gut feeling. And my first thing that I go with is the Brisbane Lions because that trio, and especially Charlie Cameron, is just cooking right now. I'm going to ride the hot hand, and I'm going to go with the Lions.
I am completely with you. The fact that this game is in Queensland at the Gabba, and for me, Frio's defense still has so many injuries,
Mm-hmm.
and when you have to face this absolute three-headed monster that absolutely showed up a very good defensive Port Adelaide team,
Mm-hmm.
and Frio is several notches below Port when it comes to defensive ability. So
Yes.
I think Brisbane gets this, and sorry for your fans, I think Brisbane wins this one big.
I hope not for the sake of some of the people out there because it looks like those Rio fans are just kind of riding in the season at this point. I don't think you should do that yet. It's still a really good chance that they make the finals, but maybe just not going to have the best of showings in this game. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it for us here at Fourth and Long, your voice for Australian football from the other side of the world. I guess, the cousins. I guess I call Australians and Americans cousins. That's a good way to put it with that one. But, Donnie, in one word or phrase, please describe your feelings going into round 8 for your Sydney Swans.
Oh, for my Sydney Swans, you kind of threw a curveball at me a little bit.
I know, that's what I'm good at.
Um, hmm, nervous.
Nervous. Nervous is a good way to put it. I guess if I'm a Giants fan, put myself on the spot. Uh, falsely confident is what I'm going to roll with in this one because I probably shouldn't be getting my hopes up because, hey, it is the GWS Giants. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure having all of you, especially just fantastic showing from all of our footy or faithful footy fans. Let's go with the triple F on that one. I like the alliteration's cool. Maybe I'll put that on a t-shirt, I guess. But please tune in next week. Tune into the previous weeks if you haven't yet. Tune into Donnie's Disposal. Plenty of great interviews of Australian or of American Australian football fans. So go check that out. And we will see all of you And by see you, I mean, I guess I'll kind of be talking to you. I don't actually see you unless you, like, you know. We'll catch you in the next one.